With an amazing Game Week 23, we head into the top 35k of players, and in today's video, we're going to be running through my transfer targets ahead of double Game Week 24. Now, before we dive into today's video, of course, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 12,500 subscribers by the end of the season, and it is only possible with your guys' amazing support. Like you saw from the intro, we have had an absolutely incredible week, picking up 79 points. We made 3 transfers in for Game Week 23. We bought in Cody Gakpo, we bought in Ahmed, and we bought in Trent Alexander-Arnold. All of them, almost all returned. Ahmed, of course, having his goal ruled out very late on for a very tight offside. Trent definitely could have got a lot more out of that game if Liverpool had kept the clean sheet and if his shot was just a couple inches lower as well. But at the end of the day, 79 points, a fat green arrow all the way up until 33k. We're not kicking that out of bed, I cannot lie. Absolutely cracking week. Before we obviously dive into the transfer targets, let's go and take a look at how my team is lining up, of course, without any players bringing in this week. And you know what? We very easily could roll. There's a few problem players, of course. Chris Wood, Aina are going to be problem players. We'll talk about them in a second. But David Raya, of course, is going to be a little bit of one with a difficult fixture this week. However, following that, Arsenal have some really good fixtures, and they are one of the best sides for projected clean sheets on the 11-5 model. Of course, they've been one of the best sides as well with expected goals conceded. They've now got Saliba back as well, so I do feel a little bit hesitant on potentially selling off David Raya, but he is one of the problem players for just this game week alone. For like kind of longer term, I do feel like he is a player that I would like to keep within the side. Obviously, I spoke about Chris Wood and Aina there, and if we bring up their fixtures really quick for Nottingham Forest, it's actually a really difficult run they're about to go on. Brighton, not a bad side, neither are Fulham to be fair, but both of those games I don't really know how to call them to, but still not ideal fixtures for a striker or a defender. Then we go into a run of Newcastle, Arsenal and City. Really bad fixtures, and like I said, my plan is to wildcard in game week 30. So out of these fixtures, we'd only probably be getting one green, and that would be Ipswich away. Like I said, not really an ideal run, and again, if you look at the 11-5 models for projected clean sheets and for projected goal involvements, they actually have Nottingham Forest right down the table. So maybe it is to kind of just cash in. We've of course got our look out of Chris Wood and out of Aina this season, and maybe time to look at other alternatives. So some of those alternatives, let's go and take a look. Let's first off start with the Everton boys, like I spoke about. Jordan Pickford could be our rare replacement for this week. We get him in ahead of the double game week. Pretty decent fixture, and the reason I like Jordan Pickford as an option as well, of course, Arsenal may potentially blank in game week 29. That would mean then that we would have a playing goalkeeper for that week if we were to select Jordan Pickford. And as I kind of realised last year, I would rather play my free hit in a double game week rather than a blank game week, unless there are some absolutely cracking fixtures that I want to target. And looking at game week 29, there's not really too many, so my plan probably would be just to build some transfers into that one. Obviously, dead end the team and wildcard into 30. So having a goalkeeper playing, getting a double game week out of him as well in game week 24 could be the ideal situation, and somebody that Jordan Pickford could open the door for. Of course, the other Everton option is going to be Mikalenko. If you're in the market for a budget defender this week, he is going to be one of my favourite players at 4.4 million. Really cheap, really reliable as well. Everton's XG conceded numbers, even under Moyes, have been very consistent. A decent first fixture in double game week 24 from a defensive perspective. Liverpool at home is going to be tough. It really is, but you know, as long as they can get something out of that first game, it shouldn't matter too much as well. And like I said, he could be a nice downgrade for Aina, or of course for Ezri Konsa. And the reason we might potentially go for these players as well is to free up a little bit of budget to activate the assistant manager chip. Now, there of course would be only one that I would be looking at for this game week. It would be David Moyes. He would be the one that of course we would go for with the double game week, get that extra fixture out of this chip. However, his fixtures in 25 and 26 aren't really too durable and aren't too manageable. After that point, I probably would want a manager that of course does have the table bonus, and David Moyes with Crystal Palace and Manchester United would not be getting that table bonus, unfortunately. So that is the only problem with going with him, and probably something that would potentially lead me off using that chip. I think maybe when we've wildcarded in 30, we've got a better picture of how the team is looking. That might be the better time to, of course, play the assistant manager chip for me and my side anyway. Of course, some people will be looking at slot. Maybe if you've got that final Liverpool slot available, no pun intended, and you already played your triple captain, then maybe the assistant manager could be the one to go for this game week. Let's move on then to take a look at my next set of transfer targets. Of course, it is going to be Kluivert and it is going to be Otara. Both of these guys are doing exceptionally well at the moment for Bournemouth. Of course, Semenyo also within my kind of radar or my wheelhouse as well. All these players are looking absolutely fantastic with decent fixtures coming up for Bournemouth after this Liverpool game. Doesn't seem like the ideal hop-on point this week, Liverpool at home. However, Bournemouth have had some absolutely massive results, massive killings this season, and they are putting teams to the sword right now. So maybe it could be the week, but I think probably next week is the more ideal week to, of course, go and jump on these boys. But yeah, I right now probably would lean more towards Kluivert, just for the fact that he's got penalties. I feel like his minutes are probably a little bit more secured as well. And you know what I'm like with a penalty taker. Absolutely love them. 2 Premier League hat-tricks as well for him this season. But Otara does also offer a decent option because he is an playing as a forward, so he is an out-of-position player at 5 million for a decent team that are getting good underlying data. As you can see, his data as well. And at 5 million, he could be a real steal. But I don't think they're going to be the transfers that I'm going to make this week. Probably going to be more looking towards that game week 25 fixture with Southampton. I do feel like Liverpool probably will have just enough to outweigh them or out-edge them. But definitely 2 players and a team that I think we need to be looking at over the next few weeks. Let's move on then. Let's take a look at my final 2 players that I am potentially thinking about bringing in. Of course, it is going to be Wissa and it is going to be Ndiaye for Chris Wood. Let's start off with Wissa first. One of my favourite Premier League players this season. Playing against some of the worst defences as well for XG conceded over the next 3 game weeks. Spurs' numbers recently have actually only been worsened, if that's a word, or worse than Southampton have a worse defensive record. So yeah, that's the position Spurs are in. They've got them at home. Brentford, one of the best attacks at home in Europe for expected goals and, of course, for the goals that they've scored. West Ham have looked a little bit better under Potter, but still some defensive frailties. And, of course, Leicester, before the Spurs game, hadn't won in 7 Premier League games and have been a very, very leaky defence indeed. As you can see, this guy as well is just a monster for getting off shots, getting them off in the box as well. He's just always there, and Brentford are just an absolute joy to watch from an attacking perspective. And for me, he is one of my favourite cheap budget forwards within the game. The other option, of course, is going to be Ndiaye. Again, it is going to be that double game week. Following on from that, though, we probably would just be looking at maybe moving him on. I think I am probably leaning more towards Wissa on this one. Without the double game week, I wouldn't even really be considering Ndiaye. As you can see, not a lot of shots, not really too, the data's okay in terms of expected goals, but of course a penalty is going to be outweighing that. That's one of the other factors that goes for him, but just not a lot of shots in open play. And Everton statistically are one of those sides that don't just create too many opportunities, and nothing has really changed under Moyes either. So for that regard, I would prefer to go for Wissa. But let's go and see how my transfer targets are looking with my transfer plans and my teams for the upcoming game weeks. So here is option number 1. Of course, if we downgrade Raya to Pickford and then activate the assistant manager chip, as you can see, this team would be looking ridiculously strong. It would mean that we would have technically 5 doublers, of course, with David Moyes in there. Probably maybe a few benching decisions to be had. Do we start Rodgers or do we start Chris Wood? Again, I probably would still lean more towards Chris Wood, purely for the penalty appeal. And of course, the game that Villa have in midweek as well, the big Champions League game as well. So probably going to be a little bit tired after that one. So I think this is probably more likely the option that I'm going to go for. Either role, or probably look at something like this. Take full advantage of the double. Of course, I spoke about the pros of going for Jordan Pickford as well, with potentially a blank game week in 29 coming up for Arsenal as well. However, the problems would start arising when we do, if I can click on the right one, if we do start to move forward. Of course, there isn't going to be any manager bonus for David Moyes against Crystal Palace. If they'd won that game, there would have actually been 5 places between the two sides, but unfortunately Crystal Palace lost that one. So We probably would then have to look for a replacement in game week 25, which of course isn't going to be ideal there. But the team's fine. You know, that could probably get by, to be honest. Of course, we would have Rodgers and Konza filling in for the Ipswich game. Then if we moved into 26, though, this is where the problems would really start to arise. Of course, we would have just used our assistant manager chip there, updated that one for game week 25 to get a new manager in and not have David Moyes. Then we would be left with a team that I definitely think could do with a little bit of reconstruction. Of course, Konza, not great fixtures following on this all the way up until game week 30 for Aston Villa. Then we would have Rodgers in here as well, who would also be a problem with Chelsea. We'd also have, you know, Aina in the bench here with Newcastle, Chris Wood against Newcastle as well, City versus Liverpool as well, a big game in terms of, you know, Liverpool's title opportunities. Not an easy fixture for Cole Palmer either, so the team isn't looking really ideal for that game week 26, so I do feel playing the assistant manager chip in game week 24 potentially could hamper our team further down the line rather than benefit it. But of course, maybe the points that Moyes scores over the double game week and of course the assistant manager in 25 and 26 could outweigh that. However, right at this moment, I don't think it's looking ideal with, of course, that assistant manager chip active. I would rather build those transfers into 26 and of course kind of fix the issues that we would be seeing with the side. In terms of the following week, option number 2, this would be the Wissa move, and I think this one looks a lot stronger. Of course, we would have Raya in goal this week. Wouldn't be ideal, but still the team is looking absolutely fabulous. If we move forward into 25, absolutely no problems. We just drop Rodgers and Konza into the side. The team's looking really good. Again, Raya's back in with a great fixture. We'd be able to build even more transfers going into this as well. We'd roll into 26 with, of course, our 2 free transfers in hand. And this is the point where, of course, we would go and get rid of Morgan Rodgers and probably bring in somebody like a Kluivert here. Of course, we would have Gakpo eating up quite a bit of budget on the bench, so we might need to find an alternative replacement around 26 for him and maybe drop one of Ahmed or Kluivert. But I'm pretty happy with how the side looks, so I do think I would probably prefer either just going and getting Jordan Pickford and not activating the assistant manager chip, as I think that looks better for the side further down the line, or, of course, just bringing in Wissa in and then starting to build some transfers, looking with the ideal of kind of bringing in Kluivert in 25 or 26. Let me know what you think of my transfer targets in the comment section. Of course, if you've got any questions about your team as well, get them in as I'll try to answer as many as I possibly can. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen. Get my words out, and good luck in double game week 24.